The boundless heart. One of the distinctions I like to make around this is we have the human heart. We all know the human heart, right? It also can experience love and joy and disappointment and heartbreak and all manner of the emotions of the emotive center. You could say I call it our human heart. And that's the human heart is that part of us that, can go into protection or feel closed, or, as I said earlier, that it's not uncommon when people first start to put rest attention on the heart, that they'll evoke sometimes, they'll even have some sort of pain in the heart sometimes shows up, a sense of closeness, sometimes a sense of fear will show up, because there can be a sense of vulnerability. Like the idea of openness is a wonderful idea, but that can be associated with a sense of vulnerability in the human heart. So there's all the different experiences of the human heart. And then there's what I call the spiritual heart, or the boundless heart. And the spiritual heart is something it's bigger, right? You notice just talking about it, like when I'm talking about the human heart, I kind of put my hands like this. It's kind of here, right? The boundless heart, or the awakened heart, is something that's like out here. It's the heart that really doesn't close, right? It's the heart that's associated more with our deeper true nature, right? And actually coming into some conscious connection with the boundless heart can be really important to the human heart, because the human heart is not only looking for its connection with, say, people, falling in love or finding friends or family, like I said, pets even can really connect us, and that's a connected part of the human heart. So it's looking for connection in these ways. We could call them these external ways. It's part of the beauty of life. But also the human heart, as it sort of connects with the more boundless heart, with the spiritual heart, that's also a kind of deep connection for it. That's a connection that allows the human heart to relax, because the spiritual heart is sort of invulnerable. Not invulnerable because it's protected, but invulnerable because it's sort of a different quality than the human heart. It's just nature is openness, right? There's no border to it. There's no edge to it. And so because of that, it's when we really get acutely aware of it, it has a sense of, it's the heart that wasn't hurt, even when your human heart is hurt. It's the heart that wasn't broken, even though your human heart is broken. And it's not like we want to go from one to the other. Both of them are part of the human experience of being. And in terms of sort of the awakened heart, like when we talk about awakened mind, we're talking about the consciousness or awareness awakening from its identification with thought, which doesn't mean that thought has to disappear. It's the identification. That's why we'll then, have inquiry or question our thoughts, question our assumptions, question our conclusions, question, all the ways that we're kind of conceptually attached, question our narratives too, because of course our life experience, our mind is always interpreting our experience, right? So in that interpretation is what our kind of running narrative is. And again, it's not to make the mind or the thought or even the narrative into a negative, into something that's bad that needs to be eliminated. It's to see it's not really the thoughts, it's not really the mind, it's not really the narrative that needs to be eliminated. It's just the attachment to it. And so that's why we bring inquiry and different meditation techniques and stuff so that consciousness realizes, I'm clinging on to something that's at the end of the day, a kind of abstraction, an interpretation, a narrative. And when we see this deeply enough, it can cause a kind of spontaneous release of identification. And when there's a spontaneous release of identification in a deep way, that's often a kind of moment of awakening from mind. So the heart often operates in the same way, right? We have these sort of emotional narratives. Of course, our mind and our heart are connected. Like, our heart center is what feels our narrative. It feels our conclusions. It feels our unresolved conflicts, right? So it's not like there's an abstract mental component, and then there's this heartful sense and emotion and all of that, and they're disconnected. One is actually the vast majority of the emotional center for most human beings is that they're actually feeling their thoughts, right? Because thoughts also turn into feelings. And so so much of human emotion is actually the emotion of their narrative. Now, when I say narrative, don't misunderstand me. I'm not using narrative in the sort of dismissive way that you often hear in spiritual teachings. Yes, it's a narrative. Yes, we want to see through our narratives. We want to wake up from whatever our narrative is. But that doesn't mean I'm disparaging or just dismissing our narrative. I'm just calling it what it is. A narrative is a narrative, right? The narratives are often a big part of the cause of pain and suffering and conflict. But we don't necessarily get beyond our narrative by just disparaging it, right? Or just dismissing it. Oh, it's just a narrative, and as if that actually changed anything. But so we do hold emotional narratives, right? We hold heartbreak, we hold disappointment, sometimes we hold, our innocence or our openness being violated. There's all sorts of, these are sort of emotional narratives as well so that's why often when people put attention here, they can feel that kind of, constriction. Up here in the mind, it's all just abstraction, but down here, it's feeling. That's why I said it's generally easier to come to some experience of awakening at the level of mind than awakening of level of heart. So the boundless heart is also, and even not only also, but it is primarily an organ of perception, is really what it is. The boundless heart is really that within us where we intuitively perceive and experience unity and connection. Right? So when someone has an experience of oneness or an experience of I am that, right? An experience of seeing the face of God in everything they look at, or seeing themselves in everything they look at, that happens when the boundless heart as a center of perception gets sort of lit up. It kind of gets awakened in a sense, right? And so it sort of lights up and becomes operational, I guess you could say.